Bronchitis is no joke. COVID, then laryngitis, then bronchitis. All the itises.
The trifecta.
Yummy.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I'm one of your hosts, Dick Ebert. Alongside me is my co-host, Ash Drugs Weston.
Hi, y'all.
And Gene Lyons has fled the country. And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we will provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie will take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you've not already, hit the subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all that information or past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. Finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. Now, all that being said, Ash, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
What's pretty exciting whenever we get to the end, right, of our year bands here, because we start to get much more into my realm of things. So anything like after 95, I'm like, fuck yeah, like we're getting into the good stuff. And tonight we are right at the cusp, like literally 1 year away from our original cutoff. We have the 1999 teen coming-of-age comedy Outside Providence. And one of our amazing commissioners, Mark, wrote in to say why he chose this movie. And he said, "Hi, Shat Crew. My close friend Mike V recommended the Shat podcast to me in the fall of 2021. I like to listen to podcasts and audiobooks when I long-distance run and when I drive. I thoroughly enjoyed going randomly through your back catalog of episodes while keeping up with your new reviews as they come out. Your three unique personalities and perspectives mesh well together, and I feel like I came to the pod when it really hit its stride. I don't always agree with you, but I find that you mostly confirm my opinions about what holds up and what doesn't. And from time to time, you give me a totally fresh way to think about an old movie, and I appreciate that. I commissioned Outside Providence because it was an obscure film with some notable actors. I discovered it through a recommendation from a former coworker. He always seemed to have an endless well of offbeat movie recommendations, and this was the first one. It was through him that I discovered State and Maine and Rushmore, to name another few. This movie was interesting to me in 99 because it was set in the early to mid-1970s. It made great use of music from that period in its soundtrack, and it dealt with interesting themes in a way that seemed fresh and progressive at the time. The concept of exploring the boarding school genre set in a time when the kids were persistently smoking weed was certainly an eye-opener to me in 99. Watching it again in 23, it seemed a little dated, but that's when I had to remember it was a period piece even in 99. I was born in 1973, right around the time when the movie begins, and while I was a generation younger than the main characters, I had an older brother who was in high school in the mid-70s, and he had a friend that they called Drugs. Another friend they called Jones, not because it was anywhere close to his real name, but because he was always jonesing for lewds. And I even had a friend whose dad called him Douche in the early 80s, which isn't a far cry from Dildo. I loved Alec Baldwin's performance when I first saw the movie, but upon rewatch, it seemed a little over the top and maybe more like a caricature. That necktie scene, though, however, sweet and touching. So the movie isn't perfect or even great, but it tells a really nice story, moves along well, has a few laugh-out-loud funny movements, and accurately captures a time that is long over. I enjoyed it again nearly a quarter of a century after seeing it for the first time, and I'm interested in your take. Thanks, crew. Keep up the good work. Mark.
So this week, Gene Lyons, he's out. So I feel like Dad's away. Ash, we're here alone. The adult supervision is gone. I'm a little nervous, even though we're at like 340 episodes. I think this is my maybe second attempt at hosting. It wasn't very good before. I normally struggle. So we're going to see how this goes. But I was thinking that Gene might have been a balancing voice on this review because most of the films that we've done like this, Gene has liked even when they weren't very good films.
I agree. Like Detroit Rock City, know,
Exactly.
things like that. He has this weird nostalgia in a way for certain things that we would never expect his cynical heart to, all of a sudden love. But I don't know. I'm kind of glad he's not here because I think this will be a lot more fun to just kind of go, okay, so did you like it? Did you? I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. As long as we make Mark happy, that's all that matters. Well,
agreed.
Outside Providence is a 1999 teen stoner comedy adaptation of Peter Farrelly's 1988 novel of the same name. The film was directed by Michael Corrente because brothers Peter and Bobby Farrelly were busy filming There's Something About Mary. Centering around Timothy Dunphy, the film is about his life of mischief, his incentive to attend the Cornwall Academy Preparatory Board School, and his realization that the haze in which he has lived his life has to give way for something that will stay with him forever. So before we get into the film, we always like to start off by asking where we were, what were our memories of this film. So Ash, since there is no Gene, take it away.
So I saw this at some point, or so I thought, because these actors legit run together for me over and over and over again. So I get this, that weird movie Just Friends where Ryan Reynolds is fat for the first 5 minutes, performances in movies like The Faculty, all of that. I get them so mixed up. And it's almost like the years 97 to 02 are just the same movie year for me about this type of film or with these types of characters. So I started watching this and I'm like, I don't know if I actually remember this or another one, but I was glad that maybe I got to see it for the first time or revisit it here. I'm not sure which one it was because for me, Shawn Hatosy is the same character in every single film. And so I don't know. I was really confused by this one.
A lot of the cast is generic comedy from the 90s, usually rom-com. I mean, Amy Smart,
yes.
She could be in this. It could be, Varsity Blues. I think there's one she was in with Road Trip. She's always the pretty girl who's wanted. And before this commission came in, I had never seen this film. I'm pretty confident in saying that. And the 90s nostalgia for the 70s, Dazed and Confused, good. We liked it. Boogie Nights, fantastic. Or Detroit Rock City, Gene liked it. I think you did as well.
I did.
But sadly, I think that 70s nostalgia here, it just kind of missed for me. So with that being said, let's throw on our bell bottoms, hit the Wayback Machine, roll that trailer.
Bilbo, what the hell are you doing out there?
He's getting my jacket.
Drag your pimply butt in here and say hi to the guys. Show some class, for God's sake.
Timothy Dunphy has a broken home.
What are you up to?
No.
A three-legged dog.
Get that mangy flea bag out of this house!
And 2 strikes against him.
You hit a parked cop car.
Oh.
His friends may have no future.
Cut it out, huh?
But he's about to get one, whether he likes it or not.
What's a prep school?
It's to prepare you for not getting your neck broke by me.
You can't send me away my senior year.
And the only way he'll stay out of jail is if he can survive this year.
Hey, Fonzie.
Now he's out of place.
No smoking, no drinking, no drugs, no swearing, no sex.
Outclassed.
Mr. Dunphy, who launched the New Deal?
NASA?
And seriously outnumbered.
Forget about it. You got a better chance of being struck by lightning.
It's beautiful. Just what I always wanted.
Yeah, I got it at the dentist.
From the Farrelly Brothers, the guys who made There's Something About Mary, comes something that will really make your hair stand on end.
No matter what you are.
Sounds like a real classy broad.
You wouldn't know a classy broad if you took a dump on your head.
Doesn't matter what you do now.
One more thing. Making sex is like Chinese dinner. It ain't over until you both get your cookies. So, remember I said that.
Outside Providence.
Timothy Dildo Dunphy is in the class of 1974 in his high school senior year, living in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Comes from a troubled single-parent working-class family and is friends with those who have aspirations which do not exceed smoking marijuana at the water tower. that has a view of the town. His father, Pat, suffers from his wife committing suicide and appears naive when the boys come back to the Dunphy house to get a bong. A regular held poker game is in progress. Pat insists that the boys be respectful and come in and say hello. The boys' intention is undetected by Pat that they are using drugs when Dump's wheelchair-using younger brother, Jackie, attempts to hand off the bong wrapped to Dump's coat. It falls on the floor. Jackie suggests it's a musical horn, which Pat's friend Joey asks Dump to demonstrate, only able to make the sounds to which Pat is dismissive. Pat's friends chuckle at Pat's reaction. Off the boys go on their adventures. So before I even went down and started to watch this film, I said, let's go see what this movie's about. So I go, I Google it, I get the cover art. And to me, it's false advertising. If you look at this poster, if you saw this cover on Blockbuster's shelves, if you didn't know anything about the film, you would think this is a 90s rom-com coming-of-age film about the 90s. The font is this funky 90s bendy with arrows attached to the letters. There's on the cover a prominent three-legged dog with an eye patch. They're wearing trendy, what look like 90s clothes. This could be American Pie, Can't Hardly Wait. There's nothing about this film other than the description that let me know it was the 70s.
This is why I was so confused by it, right? Because I remember the poster and it looks so much more to me like that movie, like Van Wilder, for example. Like it looks almost identical to the poster for that film. It does not look at all like what it is about to be about. And I don't understand how things like this happen in the late 90s. Like this was a very big late 90s moment where the marketing, it was like, well, it doesn't matter what the movie's actually about. We're going to market to this one group of people. And so we're going to make everything look exactly the same. Doesn't matter if it's a horror film. Doesn't matter if it's a comedy. Doesn't matter if it's a romance. It's going to look like this shit. It's going to be the weird clip art that we pull that's like word art. And then we're going to send that shit out there and everybody's going to flock to the theater to go see it because there's nothing else to see right now.
You have to feel like they were trying to trick people. It obviously didn't do well, the film. And they're trying to get people who would see this and be like, okay, let's go out there. And when the movie starts, to me, it felt like those wild 90s comedies that were trying to shock. You know, you got like Kingpin, something about Mary that was made by the brothers. And it starts off, and for people who haven't seen it, and I think there's a lot of you out there, it starts off with Dump's younger brother, Patrick, who's in a wheelchair. He's being dragged by a rope, delivering papers. They have a three-legged dog with an eye patch that's hopping around. They're pretending that a bong is a musical instrument. It is starting out like it's that shocking, almost like parody of a comedy. It's not even trying to be grounded in reality. And it just, to me, felt like false advertisement.
I completely agree. And beyond that, like, forget the tone. What about just like the look of it? Like, it's almost like it was a bunch of 90s people that had no idea how to go back to the 70s. And there's this strange like wash on the film in this movie. It's almost like they like broke something in the making of it. And I know like Instagram was not a thing back then, but this looks like a really shitty Instagram filter, or like, you know, the apps that you can download now where like you can edit your photo, but you don't want to pay for the premium filter. So you get like the 3 that are like available to you. So it's like kind of gray, kind of yellow, and kind of orange. That's the wash it puts on. This is the kind of gray one. And this movie looks like shit from the start.
The movie starts off looking normal because I noticed the exact same thing. Then there's a flashback scene about Christmas where the family's shooting a BB gun at the Christmas tree. When they go into the memory and that flashback, that's when the color changes. And I agreed with you. And I went to look at Instagram, and it is called the toaster filter, where it looks like they applied that from the Christmas scene on, but the beginning of the film looked normal. So I don't even know if they realized that they did it. But yeah, I agree with you. The movie does not look like the 70s. There's not enough reference other than the music. There's no going back to the staples of the 70s, that things like Dazed and Confused or the movies that we love, even Detroit Rock City, that put you in the 70s. Nothing puts you in the 70s here really, except for the soundtrack.
Beyond that, we get introduced to the group, right? The group of guys that we're going to randomly get to know, which first of all, like, hello, Jonathan Brandis playing like a random stoner. Like, that was such a weird, like, call back to the, mid to late 90s, like heartthrobs, how far he fell. Like, it was very sad for me. But you got this stupid group. Like, I can't figure out if we're supposed to think if the kids are dumb, or if we're supposed to think that the parents are dumb, or if we're just supposed to think that everybody's dumb and that's the joke there. Because if you're not seeing, there's this bong scene where like he goes, which we talked about in the description, he hides the bong in the jacket. It gets, dropped to the floor, that he makes him play it like a trumpet and makes these weird noises. And it's like, is it supposed to be a joke because everyone in the room knows that it's a bong? Is it like that Alec Baldwin just doesn't understand that it's a bong? And by the time it's all over, like for me, like nothing about these characters are likable at all. Like any of them, none of the parents, none of the kids, like nobody's likable.
No, but normally in movies like this, you get the defined roles of the friend group. There's normally an athlete. There's normally the ladies' man. There's normally the nerd. There's normally the dumb guy who can kick everybody's ass. There's normally the guy who drinks, maybe the straight-laced kid. They're all stoners. So, Ash, I don't know if they're making fun of just these guys or if they're making fun of the typical Rhode Island, the typical New England guy, because the Farrelly Brothers are from Rhode Island. A lot of their movies feature it, where you have, Jim Carrey in the one where he plays the Rhode Island cop. You have something about Mary. So they like to make fun of the region, and it's easy for people to make fun of the Boston guy, the wicked awesome, the Dunkin' Donuts drinking Casey Affleck, or Ben Affleck serving lattes to all the Boston guys. And my sister lives in Boston, so there's a Dunkin' Donuts in every corner. And I think they're used to making fun of that guy because that's who they grew up with. But to us, I think as an audience in general, I think the guys just look like one character, that there's really no differentiating between them. So after a while, you're just like, okay, there's, other than Drugs, who seems to be slightly different, they're all just seem to be caricatures of a character that we've seen made fun of on SNL, or Bill Barr making fun of the Sam Adams commercials. But I don't know.
Well, I think, though, that's why you get that this is something that they wrote, not something that they directed, because like there's something about the way that they direct things that I just think makes their source material funnier. Maybe they can find more of the funny within it. I don't know. But the person who directs this movie, I think, misses all of the jokes if they're supposed to be there, because up until this point, like I wasn't laughing at anything. I was trying to figure out how I was going to get through something that felt so slow. Like the first 20 minutes of this was like, it was a painful experience to get through.
Well, the guys head home with Dumph at the wheel, but he is unable to see the road with a cloud of marijuana smoke filling the cab. He rear-ends a police vehicle. Pat's poker game player, Kavich, uses his influence with a local judge to replace a reform school sentence with the stipulation of parole graduating high school at Cornwall Academy, a Connecticut boys' boarding school with a sister school nearby under the same name. Failure to graduate vacates the terms of the parole, and he will serve a 1-year jail sentence. He meets a rigid dorm mate, Mr. Funderburk, played by Timothy Crow, who emphasizes learning the school's rulebook. Dumph learns that the new friend Wheeler and other new schoolmates, a class of people that seem to have more opportunity than himself, are involved in their own mischief, just like the boys back home. So now we get to see Dumph put into a different environment, and we get it. Dumph isn't the brightest guy. Now that he's taken out of his Rhode Island roots, he is not the brightest. He doesn't come from money, but we don't need to see him walking around with all of his belongings in a plastic bag, which he does for the entire movie. Every time you see Dumph hitchhiking home, you see him relocating, going and getting laundry. All his shit's in a plastic, but he looks like a hobo. It's on his back. And I was just waiting. There had to be some moment where I was like, okay, Dumph is going to reveal that he's got a secret talent. He is Goodwill Hunting. He's smart. Maybe he plays an instrument. Maybe he can problem solve something. We're going to find something that redeems Dumph and lets him excel at Cornwall. But instead, he is brain dead the entire movie.
I am 100% with you. I kept waiting for the big reveal of like, oh, now that he's away from his dumbass friends, it's going to show that he's actually a geek. He's been reading, Faulkner at night at home when, once he gets back from the water tower. Like I was waiting for that moment, and it just never happens. And part of it is because this premise is so stupid. stupid, right? Now, you have to remember, let's orient ourselves of where we are in 99. We have really found ourselves at the end of what I like to call like the end of the age of prep school movies. So you've had Dead Poets Society, you've had School Ties, you've even had movies where it extends into college, like one of my favorite random films, With Honors, with a very angry Joe Pesci and Brendan Fraser, and you've got these things that have not happened that long ago. So this is coming at the tail end of, we like to put good looking young kids in a prep school environment and set them there and set them up for success or comedy or whatever. So I get that they wanted to like do that again with this, but what is this school? Why would they let this kid in? I don't care how much connection the poker guy has. What kind of judge would allow, hey, instead of going to jail, you've got to go to a schwanky school that we're going to give you a free ride to, that if you don't do well at, you're going to go to jail, without knowing that they're actually like a smart kid. This isn't like a kid like in Finding Forrester who finds themselves, at the end of a life so far that has prevented them from reaching their potential. This kid just doesn't have potential.
But forget about the judge. Why would the school allow him to stay? He is a stain on the academic record of this school. You see other films like you mentioned there, where we get some of these preparatory schools that are there, like they have the history. Here we start off where there's the Cornwall and they're all singing the song and about working hard and you'll be pushed to the edge. Dumpf can barely read. I mean, they ask Dumpf who his favorite author is, and he says it's Hamlet. So he's not bright enough to basically pass Rhode Island's, public education. I don't know why he is here, why he stays. He doesn't grow. He doesn't learn. He doesn't develop. He doesn't figure out a way to cheat. He would have been gone within the first month.
Yeah, I mean, if not sooner, because he'd get expelled for doing something stupid. And not only do we have kind of like a continued trend of like the prep school thing, these are all characters that we've seen before, just seen better in other movies, right? You've got the nerdy kid that everybody makes fun of. You got the cool kid that actually sells drugs. You got the guy, who's super hip and knows everything about where he is and sets him up to know all the right people. You've got the cool girl who's super pretty, but not too pretty. Like you can imagine seeing her like in the real world. And I get that it's okay to have stereotypical characters. I actually find immense comfort in that in movies, where I get to watch movies that like, it's like, oh, okay, like I know automatically what this movie is about because I've seen these people before. I've seen these scenes before. But the problem here is that the scenes and the characters are just done so poorly. They feel like cheap versions of everything else we're seeing from this time period that are just done better.
And I can feel that. I can feel that the movie doesn't know what it wants to be. I mentioned in the beginning that it starts off feeling like it's going to be an over-the-top, like Kingpin, like you jarred something loose, Tiger, where it's going to be gross. There's going to be shocking humor. And the movie starts off like that. But then all of a sudden now we get into school and we start having some flashbacks. And the movie takes a hard turn to a flashback where Dumpf is thinking about his mother. And we get a flashback. It's Christmas Day. It looks like a happy home. His dad, Alec Baldwin, sitting there. It's very much like a Christmas story. Oh, it's going to be a happy Christmas. And he gets a BB gun. And we're like, oh, it's a cute memory. The mom pulls the BB gun out and starts shooting at the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree's in the house. She's exploding the ornaments. The kids are taking them, and they're all cackling and laughing. And the camera kind of turns to Alec Baldwin, who looks a little bit shocked. And you're thinking this is a kid's memory. This is a kid's memory of Christmas Day, the excitement. But no, the mother's fucking crazy. The mother is insane. She actually ends up, spoiler alert, killing herself. And the movie goes from yuck, pull the boy in a wheelchair with his three-eyed dog, and you calling your brother Dildo, to mom's vision and breaking down. And it takes a hard, dark turn.
It does, but for what reason? Like, there's no reason for this darkness to be in there, because then they just go back to the yuck like 3 seconds later. Like, it makes no sense at all, these little interludes that exist. And it's like, it's one of those things, we've talked about this like ad nauseum in other episodes, where it's like they storyboard this shit out, and it's like they forgot to remove a piece of the storyboard, and somehow it gets like stuck in, and it makes like no sense because it's duct taped in there.
Just have it be a mystery.
Yeah.
Hey, one day mom leaves. You got dad, old man Dumphy, Alec Baldwin. He's got a shit job. He comes home, sits on the chair, has a couple beers. Have it that just mom can't take it. Mom leaves. She's gone. Dumph blames his dad. You throw in this whole suicide thing, and it just puts like a wet blanket over the whole film. And I don't think it adds anything. Dumph has low regard for both the school and Mr. Funderburk. Dumph routinely gets sanctioned with work hours as punishment for his school rule transgressions. He also develops a friendship with his sister, school student Jane Weston, played by Amy Smart, regarded as hands down the coolest girl in the school. A romance develops, and through her advice, he learns about personal fulfillment, which could be achieved by an education. Did you get that he learned something from Jane?
No.
About achievement through education? What is she gets him to stop smoking a joint for like 30 minutes? I don't know if that description.
And she teaches him that there's only one, Brown University.
There is one particular character I want to address, and that is his roommate, whose nickname is Jizz. Jizz seems to be a nerdy, awkward Jewish kid who's got like a picture of the girl he liked, and he's introverted, and you're wondering, there's going to be some reveal here at some point. Why is he called Jizz? Every time Dumph turned off the light in his room, I was expecting that we were going to see Jizz down there with his hand down his pants and doing something at night, that Dumph would be like, yo, Jizz, stop, jizzing on the sheets. But no, what we do is we get a flashback where he's an insecure kid. He gets tricked into a circle jerk. Him and like 4 other dudes, they're going to enter some secret brotherhood. They're going to turn off the lights. They're instructed to take down their pants and start jerking off. Turn the lights on. He's the only one doing it. I don't care how dumb, how introverted you are, how little experience you have. There is no way an insecure kid is going to do this.
I don't know. I have friends who have stories like this, where shit like this has happened, not, trying to join some secret society, but where they've been like caught jerking off, or they've been, some girls asked them to jerk off and somebody videotaped it. I mean, like there's shitty things that happen, but I agree that the way it's set up makes no sense, because why does this kid think he's even a part of the organization to begin with? Because he's not just a little bit of a nerd. It's not like all the people in the room were nerds and he was like a part of that, and they were making fun of all of them. Like, he's the one that clearly stands out, because he's not only a nerd, he's got this giant fro. He's got these weird ass glasses. He's ugly. He's got bad skin. Like, you are the outlier in the room. Like, red flag, red flag, red flag. Like, they have you in here to make fun of you. And if this kid really is that smart, there's no way that he's falling for it.
He looked like a young Woody Allen.
Yes, like an even less attractive Woody Allen.
Yes, like a young Eraserhead. There's no ways, but I think you're burying the lead here. So who was videotaped jerking off? And then
I have multiple friends who've been like gotten in that way, where like people like
male and female, or just male?
Just male. I don't think I have any female friends who've done that. No. A lot of my female friends feel that in general, that just makes them feel more lonely. So like a lot of them don't
and
do
you've
that.
Seen this video, or is it just like
I've seen
legend?
One before, yeah.
Did the performer know that you were viewing this?
Yeah, they showed it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not trying to bury the lead at all, but at least those people looked like every other person that was involved in that scenario. Again, Jizz deserves to be called Jizz, because Jizz looks nothing like the people he was with. There's no way that he thought that he was going to become a part of this group. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, but Gilbert and Lewis in Revenge of the Nerds, they had sex with farm animals because they thought they were going to get into alpha beta, so it does happen,
Yeah, I mean, Lewis then, of course, sexually assaults later. So, I mean, that's a very complicated example you're using here. And Lewis is hot. Lewis, at least, is hot without his glasses on. Jizz is not. Spoiler alert. So, we've talked about why are they let him in? Why are they allowing things like poor Jizz to be basically sexually assaulted in front of everybody? And then now we've got this letter that comes in from drugs. There is no way that a school could allow a kid to get in trouble for something a friend sends him. Like, no way. And also, if the letter wasn't addressed to anyone, it most likely would have gotten thrown away. But if it hadn't, okay, so maybe they let him know it was sent. But they're not going to hold him accountable for the things that drugs is saying in the letter itself. And I personally thought this was the funniest moment of the whole film, was just the reading of the letter, like the way that drugs read it in the basement, nods off and comes back. Like, that part was funny. So as a device, I guess it works in that way. But the letter itself being this impetus for him, like, to be in trouble and for him to, have to do all these extra chores made no sense.
See, but I don't get that. I didn't get that he was setting him up. I got that just Drugs was an idiot and Drugs didn't realize what he was doing, because Drugs passed out while writing it and then wrote, "Hey, I passed out. I just woke back up." I didn't get that it was a prank. I just thought he was stupid.
No, I mean that the school uses it as a setup. The school uses it as a way to be like, "You're a bad kid." Well, of course he is. He hit a cop car because he was smoking a bunch of weed, and then they brought him here instead of going to jail.
Right. They should have been watching him regardless of this letter, but they don't seem to be the best at policing. I mean, all the kids are smoking under this one tree right out in front of the school that you can see the smoke billowing out of. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what they're doing. But I had a friend also sabotage me once like this. When I joined the Army and I went to basic training, you would do like mail call, and it was a big day when everybody would get the letters from home. It was a little bit of relief from what you were doing and breaking the norms of basic training. You were able to connect with your family. And I got a letter from a friend who actually sent me, in the binding of a greeting card, 2 Ritalins ground up into a powder, even though I had explicitly told him not to. So now it gets through. So now I have this fundamental problem. What do I do? Do I risk getting caught with this? Do I take it? If I do take it, when do I do it? So, of course, I decided I wasn't going to throw it out. So one night I had fire guard, which is like when everybody goes to sleep, each hour somebody's responsible to sit up and make sure no fire breaks out, even though we have fire alarms and smoke detectors. So it was my turn. It was probably like 1 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, this is a great time. So I decided to break out the greeting card, and I got a glass of water, and I did this, whatever line it was. It was probably like 30 milligram. Needless to say, I told every subsequent fire guard, "Yo, I got this. Go back to sleep." I ended up pulling the full night of fire guard.
Oh my God.
And the next day was dragging. But that's my buddy Jeff, who ended up being my best man. So he was just looking out for me. But
it's a good friend.
Yeah, ended up giving me a long night to remember this now 20 years later.
I don't think I've ever gotten drugs mailed and anything. I've accidentally taken like wrong drugs that people have given me. They've been like, "Oh, this is a Motrin," and it wound up being like a Molly instead. Like that kind of thing has happened to me. Like, cause we used to keep everything like in one giant pill bottle, which was dumb as shit because you didn't have, drugs.com to, Google, hey, which Klonopin is the one that's yellow versus green? That's a half versus whole milligram. Like we didn't have that back then. So it was just like Russian roulette with pills, but nobody's ever mailed me any. I feel like I've missed out on that life experience.
I don't know that you're missing out on anything.
Well, back to the movie imitating others that might be better. Let's talk about this fire prank. So he wants to get, at this teacher, which again, guess what that's in every prep school movie ever. In Dead Poet Society, they're making fun of the one guy. In School Ties, they make fun of the French guy. It happens over and over and over again. And here they're making fun of our man who's putting chores on everybody's list. And it just falls so flat because he takes a little tiny Bic lighter, goes to his door, holds it there for, I counted, all of 3.2 seconds, runs away, screams fire, and then he runs, grabs the doorknob and assumes that there's a fire in his room. Well, there's no way. There's no smoke. Like there's no alarm going off. And the amount of time he heated the doorknob, it would have been cool by the time the teacher actually got there. I feel like with a Bic lighter that small, it would have taken like an hour to just sit there and hold it, to heat it up and to keep it that hot. Like this is not Home Alone. No way this prank works.
No, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but yes, Kevin McAllister does it correct.
Yes.
He's got the electric starter for a barbecue. It is the heated coil that goes in and starts charcoal without lighter fluid. He puts that on the doorknob and it lights up. It glows red. Here he does it for a split second. Ha ha. You could do sabotage much better. Leave dirty magazine, maybe some with kids, maybe alcohol, maybe put some of the weed in his desk, or try to spread the rumor that he is the dealer supplying all the kids. You could have blackmailed him. They eventually do blackmail him, spoiler alert, but there would have been a lot better ways to get back at him than this gag that just falls short.
Yeah, well, he's doing a lot of this to impress Amy Smart's character, to impress the cool girl that everybody wants to be with. But were you really confused about where these two schools actually existed in relation to one another? Like, are they located next to each other? Like, do they see one another? Are the campuses connected? How do they even know each other? Do they have like school dances where they all get together and meet, like in school ties? Why is she there playing Frisbee? Are the girls allowed on the boys' campus? Are the boys allowed on the girls' campus? And also, here's the biggest, I think, red flag about this film. Why does Amy Smart look like she's set in the 90s when everything else around her is supposed to be set in the 70s? So much of this movie feels like those late 90s films. And then she shows up with a late 90s haircut, with that sweater that comes right out of 99 and a skinny scarf that comes right out of 99. It made me really, really confused about where we were, what was happening, and where her whole world was supposed to exist. It was almost like the sci-fi film where the girls' campus was 99, the boys' campus was 75, and then there's a wormhole that brings them together.
But more importantly, where's the other girls?
Right.
I don't think we see any other girl from the girls' school. She's the only one out there playing Frisbee on her own. There's no girlfriends. Why don't we get the matching pair, the mirror image of the guys? Why don't we meet maybe the replacement for Jiz's girlfriend, the one who changed? Why don't we get a new girl? Instead, we only get her. And the question is, why would she be attracted to Dumph? She's the coolest girl out there. She's the one that, when you look at her, you see like an aura around her. You see butterflies. You hear Dreamweaver playing. But why would she fall for a guy like Dumph, who's new to the school? He's not tough. He doesn't have a skill.
I have no clue. I think it makes absolutely no sense why she would like him at all. And I get it. Girls like this sometimes want a different boy, or they want a bad boy.
A bad boy. But is he a bad boy?
No, but he's not that. He's a stoner. And he's
a
not
dumb
even
boy.
Right. He's not even a fun stoner. He's dumb when he's not stoned too. It's like he's stoned and his intelligence is stunted, whether he's smoking weed or not. He's not funny. He's not overtly cute. He's just kind of dumb. What is he, provider? Really nothing.
At least they could have given us some kind of a hint that he's great in bed. Or there's some part of their physical relationship, because to me, I don't want to say he's disabled, but it felt like she was taking care of someone who was a bit slower. And only in the end does she try to help him do better at school. She should have been doing that from the beginning. She could have awakened something in him, made him blossom. At the end, he's able to achieve something. Maybe he runs for Cornwall, the president of the school. Maybe he does something to get Funderburk fired. He could have done something, but instead he just goes about his day as he always did.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, there's definitively no way he's good in bed. He's got those weird, sharp snaggletooth things going on in his mouth. Shawn Hatosy is such a weird looking dude. Weird looking motherfucker.
Well, then Jane and others are found out by Mr. Funderburk smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol in the dorm room on the boys' dorm campus. The incident is resolved unknown to Dumph's knowledge until too late, with Jane expelled from school for breaking the rules. Dumph feels responsible for dashing Jane's goal of attending Brown University following graduation. Dumph resolves to see Jane's college plans revitalized by speaking with the dean of Brown University as he explains that she was the innocent party to the incident.
He makes this big moment here for Jane because he's gotten her in trouble. And so he makes this big grand gesture and goes to the dean of Brown. And I am sorry, again, I'm calling bullshit, like even movie bullshit. There's no way this dean even sees this kid, much less gets her back into school because of what the kid says. And just like the weird flashback with the mom, this was another one where I'm like, why even have this storyline? Like, why do you even need Jane's character to begin with? And if you need Jane's character, why do you need her to get kicked out of school? I felt nothing for Jane. I felt no like trauma for Jane or sadness for Jane. I felt no drama about the whole situation of, ooh, is she going to get back in? Is she not going to get back in? I was just like, oh, I guess she's out. And then later on, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess she's back in again, right? Like that was about as deep as the emotions went for me because it just felt like wholly unnecessary.
But you work in education. Would Brown really change her and not accept her? Because she's already been accepted. Just because she was caught in a room with marijuana, she didn't cheat academically.
If she got expelled from school, because you can only stay on your admittance if you have the diploma from the school you put on your application.
But you tell me the parents have money. It was obvious the parents were affluent. The parents probably had some pull. I don't know why the parents don't come in and fight for her. They could have gotten it. But you're right. There's no way that Dumph gets in, climbing through the window. And what's even worse is his argument makes no sense. Grammatically, it makes no sense. It sounds like he's had a head injury. Like why the dean is sitting there and there's no new evidence given. He doesn't provide written statements. He doesn't provide a confession. He just says, she should go to school because she wants to. And it was me. And I have to take responsibility. It's bad. And I feel like the movie becomes a jumbled mess. And I felt sometimes like there was parts of the movie missing. So we get finally Jane and Dumph. They're studying. This is right before they get kicked out. They're going to study for finals. Then all of a sudden they're back in Pawtucket at a party. We're finding out about the family history. The party's over. They end up, they're back in school now. Dumph is somehow, he's raising his hand. He's getting a, hey, good job from the teachers. He got a B, which is an improvement. Then we're mixed in a couple scenes of the poker game. And the poker game where really doesn't tie into the story and we haven't like grown or known anything about the characters. Early in the film, the characters ostracize one of the members because he admits to being gay. Now, poof, all of a sudden towards the end of the movie, we see the poker game again and Joey's gay. And all of a sudden the men can sit around. They've evolved. They've grown. They're joking about the fact that he's gay. Where was the heart to heart? Where was the lesson? Where was what Joel taught them about life and acceptance? The movie is jumping all over the place, and I'm kind of getting lost in the tones. And this is where it completely falls apart for me. We have Alec Baldwin, who I have to feel like he's just taking a check for the movie. He's playing the Rhode Island, dad who's just going to say, hey, dildo, come here. Hey, you're going to get me a beer. Let's go out to dinner. He's like a Rhode Island Rocky Balboa. But then the movie turns again. We get back to the mom's suicide. And just when I'm starting to buy the fact that this blue collar dad, couldn't raise kids, he wasn't prepared for it. He's going to just bare his soul and say he did the best job he can. He starts to cry. And it is the most pathetic performance I've seen of Alec Baldwin's career.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I remember in this time period not thinking he was a good actor and not thinking he was very funny. And I think it's because of performances like this. I mean, the only time I've really ever truly enjoyed him was 30 Rock. I think he's fantastic on 30 Rock, but in a lot of other stuff, he just kind of is there. Like he's just there as this physical presence. And that's what he's doing here. He's there. He's got a weird accent that you feel like you put on at like parties, like at dinner parties to seem like slightly charming. And it just doesn't work. Like he falls flat for me. And it doesn't help again that every time he shows up, the wash of the movie changes, like these blue hues, like all of a sudden take over the scene to be like, look at this sad single dad who doesn't know where he's going and his kids aren't going to amount to nothing.
But I keep waiting for him to just put his arm around Dumph. and try to give him like that little pick me up. You know, Dumpf comes to him a lot of times where he's like, hey, Dad, can I get a ride back to school? And they've had a heart to heart, and he gives him the thumbs up saying, hey, dildo, go out there and hitchhike. So I can't tell what they're doing, but it's the Bill Murray effect. Every movie, Bill Murray is Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin is Alec Baldwin. And maybe this is the best he could do. Well, Dumpf comes to term with his father's apprehension, discussing the death of his mother because the latter felt responsible for imposing on her life and she could not handle it. Being too young when they married, depressed and agoraphobic, Dumpf refuses to shake Funderburk's hand at the graduation ceremony. Yeah, he graduates, spoiler alert, in the auditorium and exits after asking his classmate for his luggage, which we know is a black plastic bag. He then meets up with his father and Jackie as they arrive. Late. Pat hands over his acceptance letter to the Community College of Rhode Island, where Dumpf points out that everyone is accepted, although he could then transfer to a senior college where people sleep over and shit. Pat congratulates Dumpf on being the first in his family to go to college, and the young brother, not to be trumped, surmises the possibility that he could just very well, maybe that Jackie himself, be the first to graduate.
That was so much better acting than anything we saw in the whole end of the film. That was really impressive, sir.
Where the fuck was old man Dumpf? He shows up late.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up late. He's dressed up. He's got a tie on. He's made an effort to come. You know, he's got Jackie in the back of the car. They got the three-eyed dog. They show up to the graduation when it's almost over. Was this dude, was he trying to make a statement like, hey, I don't need this highfalutin school to tell me what I'm going to do with my Dumphy sons. I don't need that. Or is he just that incompetent to do anything like an adult?
I think it's more they didn't have the money to do a graduation scene and to have all those extras there. I think
it
they
felt
had
like an add-on.
It felt like it was like they ran out of their budget. You know, so like they just needed him to show up and him like coolly come to the car, of course, with his trash bag. He needed his shit, right? He had to come out there with his trash bag, and we had this little heart to heart, and then they move on so that they didn't have to pay all those people.
They shouldn't have paid Alec Baldwin. He didn't deserve a paycheck.
But speaking of graduations, how the fuck does this kid make it through? Like, there's no way this prep school passes him. He doesn't have, like we talked about at the start, he doesn't have some awakening where we find out, like, he's really smart. We don't have this moment of, like, hey, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be a teacher and I'm going to teach kids that I couldn't, you know, learn with. Like, you know, we didn't have anything like that. He just graduates, and I know he did not get all of his credits from his previous school. There's no way he like had all of that stuff. He would have had to spend like 4 or 5 years here making up what he didn't have, and we didn't even get to see like the weird scene where like he passes all of his finals, you know, like he studies so hard and Jane helps him and he gets that really hard-earned 70. You know, it's not a 69, it's a 70. It may be a D, but I earned that D, right? Like we didn't have any of those moments. And so I don't get how he graduates at all.
Okay, in an honest battle of wits, if we put Billy Madison against Dumpf and gave them both the SATs, who scores higher?
Billy Madison, because Billy Madison has an awakening. Billy Madison winds up being actually pretty smart.
Is there a chance maybe there was some blackmail with Funderburk that we didn't see?
Maybe.
Or it was just the school saying, let's get him out of here.
Maybe he heated up, you know, the door handle for 5 seconds instead of 3.5 and tortured him with it. I mean, I don't know. It was like, okay, we got to end the movie. Let's let him graduate and have a win and people will care. But unfortunately, nobody cared.
And we don't even get a what's next.
Yeah.
You know, he gets Jane back into Brown. They're going to be together. There's a dream of a future. They're going to be in the same area. They can maybe continue their relationship. When Jane gets around the guys at Brown, I highly doubt she's going to be hanging out with Dumpf and his buddies drinking at the water tower. Give us something. But, you know, just like his dad, I don't think the movie was capable of it. Well, it's about that time where we're going to give you our Shat score. Our Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your collective butts. 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It is being tricked into taking down your pants, and just as you're about to climax, they throw the lights on and you're stuck with a nickname that you despise for the next 4 years of prep school. Zero Wipes is a perfect movie. It is Jane Weston playing frisbee in the courtyard of school, and all you can do is see little butterflies and birds as she goes by you. So we're going to start off with you, Ash, since there's nobody else. How many wipes do you give outside Providence?
It's not that funny. And I don't know about you, but it was slow. Like, this felt like a 5-hour excursion. This did not feel like a short film at all. I thought it was kind of boring, and it just was so choppy. It felt all over the place, like almost like vignettes that didn't connect. But, is it the worst thing we've seen? No, like not even by a long shot. It's not offensive. It's not just dumb in a way that makes you feel dumber. It's none of those things. So for me, way worse than average, but not one of the worst movies. I'm going to say 3.5.
I think you're being a bit kind.
Maybe.
Now, we watched this a little longer ago than we normally do. Normally, we record pretty shortly after watching it. And I'm glad we had this time to kind of let it just ferment, let it ruminate a bit so I could really think about it. And my biggest problem with it, besides the fact that it is multiple tones, multiple directions, the bigger problem I have with it is the fact that I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't want Jane and Dump to end up together. I didn't want the dad to actually turn his life around, get over the suicide of his wife. There was nothing. I didn't enjoy the friend group. I didn't want him to pass school. I didn't want him to get into senior college. I didn't want him to achieve anything in life because they're just forgettable, unoriginal characters. It was very cookie cutter of the 90s prep school movies, which you so well described. But unlike those films, nobody in here was worth rooting for. Not a single character. Is there anybody in this movie who you can say, that was an enjoyable character?
No. Drugs.
Jackie. I'd watch a movie about Jackie, who again comes back at the end of the movie. Drugs is pulling him around in a van.
Yeah.
Pulling a boy in a wheelchair, 3-legged dog, slams headfirst into the van. Yes, I would watch a movie of Jackie doing his paper route for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Rather than watch Outside Providence again. So for me, I think I'm going to have to go a little bit worse than you. That I'd have to say 4 wipes.
I think it's fair.
So Ash, if we add your 3.5 wipes to my 4, that gives us a combined wipe score of 3.75 wipes. That now ties this in the 270 spot with Ice Pirates, Lady Hawk, and Robin Hood Men in Tights. It is slightly worse than It, Trading Places, and Jingle All the Way, and slightly better than The Last Starfighter, GoldenEye, and A Christmas Story.
I have to say, I feel like that's fine.
It's down the bottom. It really is.
I feel like that's fine. I feel like it's right where it belongs.
I now understand why they changed the poster to make it look like a 90s film.
Yeah, so people actually went and saw it.
Mark, I hope we didn't disappoint you there. And thank you for the commission. And thank you to all of our commissioners. We honestly couldn't do it without you. And that takes us to next week's film. Gene will return, and thankfully, I probably will never have to host again.
I think you did a great job.
No, I think you're lying. You're trying to make me feel better.
I think it was fantastic. I thought you were, kind and you kept the pep up, and your reading was great. Your accents was fucking awesome.
I feel like Dumph. I feel like I'm the mentally. Your reading was real good, Dumph.
Your reading was real good. We got you out of that prep school. You're going to go to that community college. Maybe one day you can sleep over. Sleep over at the big one.
You go into the senior college, Big D. You're the first to do it.
Big dildo.
Yes. Well, next week, another one of our great listeners, Rachel C., has commissioned a film. It is the modern adaptation of Dickens' classic coming-of-age story where it sees the young and naive Finn who falls in love with Estella, a girl raised with the strict intention of breaking men's heart. When he is growing up and living in New York, he has become a successful painter. Estella reappears in his life and Finn falls deeply in love, knowing all the while that it is a feeling that can never be returned. Again, commissioned by Rachel C. She's great. She's commissioned a few films before. And this is something that I think I will lean heavily on you and Gene for, because I have never read it and I've never seen the film.
Spoiler alert, love the book, love the movie.
All right. Well, that concludes this episode of Shat the Movies. I'm sure it's going to be a train wreck, but I will try to edit this to make it to something that's listenable. I apologize. We'll never host again.
You were great.
I'm just self-loathing, Ash. I'm just self-loathing.
You were fantastic.
Thank you.
I give it a 1 wipe.
You're so full of shit. Well, that concludes this week of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Farmers Only, Instagram, and Grindr. You can email us at hosts@shatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own film. Find all the information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. You'll find all that information on the website, shatpod.com/TV. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Ash and Gene Lyons, be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
I'm not going to tell the story the way it happened. I'm going to tell it the way I remember it.
She's beautiful, isn't she? But what do you think of her? She'll only break your heart, it's a fact. And even though I warn you, even though I guarantee you that the girl will only hurt you terribly, you'll still pursue her.
Are you with anyone?
I'm here, aren't I?
That's where we at. They say, there we go. We already started it. Welcome back to Shat the Podcast, the podcast where we answer the... Nope. Okay, we're going to give it one more try. If I screw it up, then you try.
Shat the Podcast.
Okay, Shat the Podcast. Let me make this font a little bigger. Maybe that'll help. Okay, let's try this.